Hello, hello. Welcome back to that Mill podcast. First one of the week. Apologies for the absence. Joining myself, Omer, we've got Mr. Dan. Hello, you right?
Hello, guys. Yeah. Shame about Saturday. We'll discuss that and we'll try and look forward to Sunday. But I don't think my negative Dan nickname's quite going away just yet.
Mate, pessimistic, glass half full. We would have took a loss at Middlesbrough and a win on Saturday, so just don't do it the other way around, mate.
Why not? I mean, I'd like to see a few more away wins personally. I don't mind that. But then I also want value for money out my season ticket. So,
Well, as Dan said there, on today's show, we're going to talk a bit about Saturday's game just gone. We're recording this on Thursday night. You're listening Friday morning. We're over that on Saturday's defeat. We've had a shit week because of it. Life gets in the way, but Mill will get worse. But yeah, we'll talk about Saturday's game just gone. Talk a bit about transfer news, a couple of departures from the Den, and one loan actually departure as well. And also talk about Sunday's game. So let's get straight into it, Dan. We lost 1-0, 94th minute goal against Bristol City, mate. I mean, just overall feel and feeling after that game, mate. And I mean, I say it's gone. I still forget about it after Saturday's defeat, mate. But I don't know what you thought.
yeah, I was just disappointed, really, to be at home and, the feared place that the Den is for us to have our first shot on target from a free kick in the 91st minute, which forces their keeper into a save. Just isn't good enough. And I think if we were playing a team that had a bit more attacking prowess than Bristol City, I think could have been a lot more heavier of a defeat. It's a shame because obviously, it was a brilliant pre-match with the Berylson family and the video. And, I just felt like it just went really flat after that. It's just a bit disappointing really on the whole.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, obviously talk about pre-match first as well there. I mean, you touched on the Bells thing. I think the atmosphere pre-game was it felt great. Like, obviously, pre-game outside, I think from about 12 o'clock onwards, the Den was busy and rocking, all the bars were open. It was a nice kind of first home game of the season feel, weren't it, mate? And I felt like we was going to do it for John Saturday. That was my gut feeling. I thought, if there's any incentive the players need, it's to go and do it for your late chairman, isn't it? And, we saw all the posts and obviously the creative program we all probably picked up and stuff. And it just felt like, especially when that video was on, the Den kind of felt eerily quiet at times. And it just kind of was set up for the occasion. And unfortunately, we just didn't deliver, mate.
Yeah, it does feel. I don't want to say obviously we've kind of let them down a little bit, but it does feel like that, especially given kind of the game and everything. But the atmosphere at home is, I think I've said this to a few of my mates. I think I might have put it in the pod group chat. We're renowned for our home atmosphere, but for us to get up for it, we need the players to do something, and it just feels like with these tactics, we just aren't getting that much of an opportunity to get ourselves up and into the game to really make the difference that we know that Den can be for us.
I agree with you. I think the talking point after the game, well, it felt like amongst my lot anyway, when you're at the pub drowning your sorrows, was if Harris was in charge, it's the question that's always been branded about, would we have won that game? And I'll be honest with you, I'd say in a heartbeat, yes. But then the context to that is, without Rowett, would we be where we are right now? There's so many things to that. But I just feel like, of the occasion, full set, then, well, near set out, I think North Stand was almost packed out as well. I think, it was almost like made for the players to, I think Jackett, as you say, is his manager as well, and Harris, the players have got to bring the fans into the game. I know, obviously, the crowd's there and backing the numbers, but there's that element from the players too, where they've got to win the fans over early doors to get the Den rocking. I don't know if you agree, mate.
Yeah, that's it. The earlier you can bring your home fans into the game, then that's all. At times it can be a 12-man, and with there being so many of us in the ground on Saturday, it certainly would have felt like a 12-man to the players.
Would we have won if Harris was the manager that day on an isolated event?
I feel like we might have done, yeah, just because he knows, Carrow Road, he's done a good job for us. I'm not going to sit here and say he's done a crap job. And, there may be conversations to have later in the season about as he ran out of road, but we're not going to get into that tonight. Otherwise, we'll probably end up spending our whole show on that. But, Harris was Millwall. We knew how to bring the crowd into play. They just can't, obviously, I think it's quite a textbook thing to say, but he got us, and I think like he would have been able to get the boys up for that game, maybe a bit better than Gary Rout would have.
I mean, we're doing this a bit off the cuff anyway tonight show, but like, not to throw you under the bus and ask this question, but is that, you say Harris got us, does that mean Rout doesn't get us? Like, I mean, we hold debate about five at the back, and there's a whole tangent we can go down here with this, and I'm kind of over Saturday. I'm not, but I am, because it's the end of the week now. I'm starting to get excited for Sunday's game. But is there an element of Rowett, quite stubborn in his way? I saw an article this morning where he defended his tactics and saying, look, this is how I'm going to play. This is, that's the kind of general gist I've got from that. But does Rowett not understand what, especially when it's set out then to get the Mill fans on side? Is that not an element for him, I suppose?
I think he tried. I think he got it a bit more last season, but he's being so stubborn with his five at the back. And I think if it's either going to cost us our season or it's going to cost him his job if he doesn't become a bit more flexible with it, because Sunday's game wasn't very fun to watch. Saturday's game, sorry, wasn't very fun to watch. I can get going away to a team like Middlesbrough and playing five at the back. I can get going to the bigger teams away and go and playing five at the back. I don't think it's realistic for us to be able to play four at the back one week and then five at the back the next week. But for the bigger games away from home especially, I can understand the benefits of going to a five. But, I just struggled to, really get excited. Nisbet, he must be very frustrated up there. And, felt like Fleming didn't really affect the game again on Saturday, but that's because, in my opinion, he might look a yard off it, but he's also being forced to come out wide, which isn't his best position. His best position is in them pockets of space just behind the striker.
I don't know what you think. I mean, you said obviously if it was a better side on Saturday, we probably would have been punished a bit more, but it felt like a 0-0 game. I don't know if you disagree with me, but Bristol City didn't have a lot on offer. They took their chance right to death. I think they probably had shaded the better chances. I think that was their first shot on goal on Saturday when they scored. And obviously you mentioned at the 91st minute. It was a drab game, wasn't it, mate? I mean, is there an element of us overreacting? I mean, it's classic Millwall, isn't it? That it's there, to kind of kickstart the season at home, and we kind of blundered the first hurdle, I suppose. But that's not unusual for us, is it?
No, but I feel like there was more pressure, maybe a bit more pressure on us coming off the back of the Reading game as well.
Yeah,
which was obviously really poor. From my perspective, I just struggled to get excited when we went forwards, and with Murray Wallace, and I didn't think Cooper had a great game on Saturday. Don't think Danny Mack had a great game, especially going forward. But look at our defenders. I could just kind of felt a bit uneasy. There was a few times where I feel like Sarkic needed to be a bit more dominant in terms of kind of sweeping as well. I just kind of felt a little bit on edge whenever they got the ball forwards, and the goal kind of came from a long throw, just us failing to kind of clear our lines. And fair play to the lad, it was a great finish, but how often do we kind of concede goals from restarts, especially for a team that's so good attacking them at the other end? We're quite bad actually stopping them from going in our own net.
Yeah, I mean, not to make this I personally don't want to get too carried away with it. It's disappointing, but we've got a perfect opportunity to put it right in the next game, as they always say in football, right? But not to blast the players too much, but we mentioned obviously Harris and Rowett, the comparison there, if Harris is in charge. Is there also a lack of characters in that side? I mean, this is just stuff that I'm thinking about post-game that we talk about afterwards. We're in Harry's bar and we go out afterwards, have a few drinks. There isn't that kind of, if that was a Steve Morrison in that side, or, it's cliched answers from me, and I appreciate that, but there is no real kind of I'm going to lead this team kind of elements, I think, to this side, and I think that's something we're missing big time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got Hutch, who's your leader at the back, but you've over the last kind of few years we've had them players more up the top end of the pitch. We had Jed, who did it for quite a while, Morrison, Gregory, who sometimes when we're not playing well will kind of pick the team up by the scruff of its neck. Last season, I think that kind of bounced in between Fleming and Bradshaw. But yeah, we seem to be struggling to kind of do that this year. So be interesting to see. We've had a couple of departures, which we'll touch on shortly. Be interesting to see. Rowett seems to be very keen to bring another attacker in. I don't know whether that's going to be someone who's a bit more central based, whether that's someone who could maybe go out on the wing. I wouldn't be opposed to getting a target man in. It's a different option. But I also wouldn't mind if it was a winger and maybe gave us the option to go for a 4-2-3-1. But that's if Rowett wants to change his tactic and admit he's wrong.
Is he wrong though? Or, I mean, I agree with you. I don't like 5 at the back at home either, but is he wrong? I don't know. Is that wrong? What do you think?
The 5 at the back, it can, if your wing backs play high, and I think if you look at the Sheffield United kind of blueprint, the way they did it, they'd throw a centre half forward. I think there are times when Gary Rowett came into Millwall, particularly in that first year where he brought the 5 in, you would typically have Cooper maybe making a run forward or Hutchinson. It just kind of feels like they're too scared to do it now. or whether that's been drilled out of them not to go forward, or whether they feel too scared upon leaving their other teammates at the back to go forwards. I don't know, but I'm struggling to get excited by a 5, especially at home.
I agree with you, and I think that's also back to that whole conundrum of if someone else is in charge, if Harris was in charge, or I think if you got to get that bring that crowd into the element and the players rise to the occasion. Some people say the crowd should bring the players into the occasion. It's a bit of both, but 80% of it for me falls on the players to bring the fans into the game. So, you mentioned Fleming earlier, mate. He got subs for the second league game in a row, mate. I mean, what did you make of him on Saturday?
But yeah, I thought he didn't have a great game. Maybe he looks a yard off it because of the transfer saga over the summer. And I also think playing him out wide, I think he's wasted out there. Someone who's, can play. He got a lot of goals from his late runs into the box, picking up them pockets of space on the edge of the area as well. And someone with his physicality as well, wasting him on the wing, it just feels utterly pointless. And you aren't going to get another 15 goals out of him if you're asking him to play on the right or on the left constantly all game. If you say to him at times, you're going to play behind the striker, at times feel free to drift out wide, that would suit him a lot better. But to have him constantly out there just feels completely wasted.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think it's a weird one because obviously this transfer room was loomed over his head. It feels like Burnley have moved on to other targets, but who knows what you believe on that one and what to really think of it. I mean, if Burnley probably lose the next couple of games, maybe they might come back in for him, or maybe they'll look completely elsewhere. It's one of those ones, isn't it, mate? I mean, what's your gut feeling on that? Do you think he leaves us this window overall? I mean, has your opinion changed much, or what do you think?
I think it will stay now. I think Burley have moved on to other targets. There seems to be still linked with quite a few names, and Fleming's name isn't one that's reappeared. Maybe Sheffield United might have gone in for him, but because they were after Akpom, who plays in a similar kind of role to Fleming, but they don't seem to be interested. So there's nothing in that. But if you actually look back at the start of last season, before Rowett changed to a 4, when he was playing a 5, Fleming was playing out wide, and you could see the kind of potential that he had, but he was being wasted out wide. Now, obviously, they identified Fleming, and Rowett now plays. They identified Fleming as a 10, and Rowett, it feels like, favours this system, which doesn't want to have a number 10 in. He rather wants to play with 1 up front and 2 flanking. Obviously, that kind of changed a little bit when Bradders came on in the second half, but didn't really make much of a difference.
It just felt sour Saturday. How many times have been in the Millwall and high hopes and go to the Den, and it's a chance to get the same 17,000 there the week after next and to have them at Stoke. Typically that it never happens, and I can't. That's me. I don't want to get too carried away with it and Den and bury us too much, but it's just lackluster. I mean, that team, when you look at it, mate, the midfield of Watmore, Denor, Mitchell, having Fleming in there. You think energy, you think kind of, non-stop running. It just felt flat, didn't it? And I think that's something we have to put right on Sunday, where probably ironically with Norwich having more of the ball, because obviously we tend to do better without the ball. But I mean, I think Bristol had more possession at the end on Saturday. But I think hopefully there'll be gaps in space for us to capitalise on that. But obviously we'll talk about them all in a bit, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, Casper was probably the Millwall player I thought had the best game. Him and Brian were probably our best 2 players, I thought, on Saturday. But yeah, it did feel flat. So it was flat. It was disappointing. But Norwich will probably have more of the ball. Might be a bit more like Middlesbrough, and then maybe chucking if SA and Amaku don't start, if they are both on the bench again, maybe chucking them on later in the game might work. But it's quite funny because one week a lot of our fans are singing Gary Rowett's praises for bringing them 2 on at Middlesbrough, saying, he's learned this isn't the type of change he usually makes. He's done it and he's won us the game. And now the next week, everyone's a bit kind of pissed off because we're playing 5 at the back at home against, I don't think, I mean, this might come back to bite me on the arse, but against the kind of mid-table team at home.
Who'd be a football fan, mate? I'll tell you that. And who'd be a football manager too? I'll tell you that much too. I mean, look, I think we've talked to death about that game if we want to. We can talk about the ins and outs of it, but we lost. We kind of Thursday night, like I said, on Thursday night, it's time to dust it off and just forget about it, mate, because we've got some transfer news from this week and 2 departures on permanent basis and 1 loan departure as well, mate. So first one being George Long, and he's departed the club. He's gonna maybe play us a Sunday, probably won't, but he's now playing for Norwich City, mate, after a 2-year deal succeeded there, and apparently got on a free transfer. Goodbye, George Long. What do you think about that one?
I just think his relationship with the fans was too far gone. Maybe overly scapegoated, maybe not overly scapegoated. I don't know. It's quite clear that he wasn't the goalkeeper for us if we did have aspirations of getting into the playoffs again this season. So, I can't say I'm too disheartened about it. And for him, he's almost certainly getting paid more money to go and sit on Norwich's bench than he would to sit on our bench.
Mm-hmm.
So from his perspective, he probably thinks, why would I not go for the money? I may as well go for the money and then come back. And maybe if an injury pops up there, he gets a little run in the team. But I think he just kind of ran out of road here.
You could probably use the exact same answer for Tyler Burey, couldn't you? I suppose because he's the party to Denmark, mate.
Massively with Tyler Burey. I think it's very telling as well. It's only a small thing, but neither of them have posted goodbye messages on their social medias.
I've done a tweet about that just before we started recording today. Exactly.
It might have been your tweet, to be fair, that I saw that made me say it. But neither of them have done a goodbye post. I think that's kind of very telling.
I think with that one, like, it is telling, but I think it highlights their character, or like in what you need to succeed at Millwall. Like that's the underlying tone for me. You could be a talented player, and we all know, can Burey come back to bite us on the arse and be a world beater? I'm probably not going to be the next Eze, but you never know. Look at Fred Onyedinma, for example, at Luton. Okay, he's now gone on to Rotherham, but players do come back and kind of succeed at other clubs where it is a bit nicer on the fan base, I suppose. But I think with that, mate, it's like everyone said, "Oh, no post," and who blames him after getting slated? But even Jab Wallace used to get slated after games, and Steve Morrison would get slated after games, and they still speak highly of the club because they're completely different characters to these two, aren't they? And I think, club legends get stick. Think of Keith Stevens when he's the manager, and Rhino getting spat Brentford after his last game as manager before he got sacked. It's you hear these stories, they're horrifying to hear sometimes, but that's Millwall, isn't it? And that's never going to change, it feels like, at least not in our time, hopefully. So I don't want it to change, to be honest. I want to be able to give players stick, but you need to be a character to rise to it. And that's what I'm trying to make here. Like, okay, no thank you post. It shows more about them, if anything. And okay, who can blame them? But take it on the chin, say thank you for my time, get on with it, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, it's a hard club to see that, mate. But if you get it right, you're going to be here forever, it feels like.
Yeah, I feel like the situations with Tyler Burey and George Long were a little bit different. I think Rowett made it very clear from kind of the end of last season, start of pre-season, that Tyler Burey wasn't going to be in his plans moving forwards. And, there is the case that maybe Burey shouldn't have been playing towards the tail end of last season if Rowett knew that he was going to be on his way this summer. Mm-hmm. With Long, I think he probably would have stayed if we didn't bring in Sarkic, and I don't know whether the club's plan was to bring in Sarkic or bring in a goalkeeper. And then obviously Sarkic, there was obviously the Travers link and a few others, but Sarkic came in, and kind of the first time Long's kind of had really any kind of serious competition, because once he was in the team last season, he was in, and the first time he's had some serious competition, he's gone. It's interesting that he seemed very keen, from judging from what Rowett said, that he wants to be a number one, and he's gone somewhere where it's maybe a very slight step up, but he's going to be a number two there regardless, and all their fans are saying it's a half decent number two option.
I'd love to see him play on Sunday though. Imagine like their number one gets injured in training on Saturday morning.
He'd have a well beaten game though, don't you?
Of course. But like, I've got this image in my head. We lose 1-0. He'd save a penalty. We'd have about 7 clear-cut opportunities to score, and he saves all of them. But I just got this image in my head of him starting Sunday. I can't get it out of my head. It's probably not going to happen. It won't happen, but you see strange things happen, mate. And it'll be fucking funny as fuck, wouldn't it, mate? That's ultimately what I think. But,
yeah,
I mean,
I would laugh, but and in a way, part of me, because I know what George Long's like, I'd be like, I do want him to stop. I just know he'd have an absolute worldie of the game.
I agree, and I think in both these cases, back to the character's point, like I think they just, I wouldn't say melted, but like they succumbed to the Mill Den, and like I don't want to make that sound cliche, but that's the facts. They had their opportunities. They could have come back from it. They hadn't. In Long's case, it feels like he kicked up a fuss. That's what the rumour mill says. Who knows? But obviously, he wasn't on the bench for either of the 2 games just gone. And he wasn't even involved on the bench for Tuesday night either, just gone against Reading. So it feels like it's a sour ending there in both cases. In Burey's case, mate, I mean, I used to think great to have him off the bench because of the pace, but now you got Esse and Amaku. Maybe he's just a victim of that, isn't he? Where like Esse's come through it in the last season. Amaku's proven to be a bit of a success anyway at the minute and coming off the bench showing his pace. I guess there's no space for Burey anymore.
Yeah, maybe if the club are in the market for another attacker as well, who is someone who could maybe kind of play maybe as a 10 if needed, maybe up top. So maybe that kind of gives a little bit away, maybe the profile of the player they might be looking to sign. But yeah, even if he was still here come September the 1st and Rowett said, he's still here, we'll have a chat, see where his head's at, he might come back in, he would find himself behind Esse, behind Maku, behind probably Vogel, Samar, he'd be bottom of the pecking order for the attacker list, And we actually managed to get a fee for him. I don't know how much the fee is.
Yes, interesting.
And we've got a sell-on clause, so it might be something that comes good for us in the future. But for us to actually get a transfer fee on a player is a start at least.
And considering also, I think probably success to the club in that sense. He was signed on the 23s, wasn't he? 3 or 4 years ago under Harris, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, with that, I mean, even George Long, I think he signed a deal towards the end of last season. All the goalkeeping department did. We all know that, and it was well documented. They all signed at the same time. But it's bizarre, isn't it? Like, Mill have done well here, or has George Long got an amazing agent to get him this move to Norwich? Because we've just managed to, I imagine, lose a considerable earner because he signed as the number 1. But it also highlights how quickly he deteriorated at the end of last season. Maybe Blackburn was the final straw for him.
Yeah, I think the Blackburn game kind of was. He was, I tried to defend him for as long as I could, but I think I kind of turned on him after the Wigan game. And I think he knew after that, really, especially after Blackburn, he was going to struggle to find his way back here among the fans. I think Rowett was willing to give him that chance until the opportunity to sign Sarkic, who's someone Andy Marshall knew very well. So you can imagine that him and Rowett had that conversation and he wanted to bring Sarkic back to work with him. So, yeah, I feel like both of them ran out of road, but both of them are kind of in slightly different circumstances. So, it's good to get him off the wages. As you said, I can't imagine he was up there one of the higher earners, but probably somewhere in kind of the middle terms of earners. So I feel like that's probably a good bit of business to get his wages off the book.
I completely agree. I think also then hopefully it helps us to strengthen with the targets we're trying to identify and go for. No names at the minute have come out, have they? I mean, I saw
a link to Fulham striker Jay Stansfield earlier. Don't know if there is any kind of credibility behind that, but no, the club want to add an attacker. He was on loan at Exeter last season, so presumably Fulham are looking for him to maybe make the next step up. But it'd be interesting. I feel like I've watched him a little bit. He isn't a bad little player, but I don't know if he'd really add anything to our squad that Bradshaw and Nisbet and others in that squad don't already have.
It begs the question, because I wanted to ask this about the game just gone in Bristol City, but because obviously you look at our bench, it's like, okay, we're letting defenders go. We'll talk to Mitchell in a second, but we've got forwards, we've got options. It's almost like, can you get them all into the same team almost? Maybe Rowett doesn't know what his best 11 is in that sense, especially going forward, mate, because you think about it, Vogel, Samar, okay, he's still bodies here. Amaku, Esse, Bradshaw, there's options there, isn't it? And maybe it's a sense of, does Rowett even know what his best 11 is? And maybe are we going to see a change? We'll go 2 up top maybe and surprise us all.
I don't think he does. I think that's quite clear. Hence why even towards the latter stage of pre-season, he was still not really fielding his strongest 11 and still making, kind of 7-8 subs at a time, which, little bit concerning so late on into pre-season. But I still think he doesn't. No, I feel like once he gets his formation sorted, the players will gradually begin to fit themselves and grow into their roles. But I don't think this 5 at the back suits the players that we've got. I do feel like we're probably one winger off having a very good 4-2-3-1 setup with the players we have at the club. Maybe a centre half as well.
I do think I can see one of us going back to it, but we'll save that for another day. Who knows?
Yeah.
But Torah, George Long, Torah to Tyler Burey. I guess all the best, and just if George Long, if you play Sunday, have the worst game possible, please, like we used to say you have. I mentioned Alex Mitchell very briefly there, mate. He signed a new contract today. The club announced the contract, and then in the same line said, in the same breath, he's going to Lincoln City on loan. to step up League One football for him. How do you think about that one? I mean, it's a bit of an interesting one considering we play 3 at the back and feels like we only got Wes Harding left and Leonard who could play there. Interesting, but George Evans. I think Evans surely has to move on this window, but we'll have to see. But Alex Mitchell's gone to League One, a step up in his development, I guess you could say, mate, and we'll be interested to see how it unfolds for him.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with him going out on loan. I feel like even with having 3 centre halves, I feel like Rout still would have picked Harding and Leonard over him, so I don't think it's a bad thing for him to get out and hopefully play some regular football. Lincoln are a team that can play it around a little bit, so whenever I've saw him a little bit in pre-season, he didn't look the most comfortable on the ball, so maybe him going there will help that kind of side of his game a little bit. But it's a step up in quality, so I think he'll do well there. Sounds like a season loan with the option to break the deal in January if he does start doing really well there. So there's another team I need to start looking out for now. Obviously I think he's the 4th player to go out on loan this summer now. Don't think I've ever really known us to loan out so many players in one window. Usually we loan out a few youngsters during the season to the non-league clubs, but we've got 4 out already.
I know Chinicoli's getting good rapport from Bromley already, and I mean he's started all their league games. But it's interesting. Like I said, I've also the standard of loans that are impressing me because League One, and obviously Joe Wright's gone to Salford. There's players featuring in the Football League as well, which is great to see. And obviously it highlights what the 23s have done, and obviously winning the regional stuff last year. But I think with Mitchell, I guess it's quite telling he's not involved. I'm happy he's gone out on loan. I agree with you. If he's not going to play, get him out. But I guess it highlights Rarick's not a massive fan of his because you look at Matt Lamar, for example, when he was on loan, I think, what was it? Who was he at League Two? St Johnston. He was at Newport.
Yeah, that was it.
So then he came back from St Johnston, like Alex Mitchell did, and was straight in the sides. And obviously Marlon Romeo was a bit flattering to the scene at the time, and fair enough for that reason. But I guess maybe it highlights 2 things. Maybe one, he's not sure about him, but also he values Cooper, Hutchinson, and Wallace as higher, and also Leonard, like you say, and Wes Harding. So there's competition there, but it still feels a bit light there, mate. And it's an interesting one. I mean, I feel like we have to recruit someone else to go out the back line because we lost Charlie Creswell last year, and that's for me like the elephant in the room here, where we've not replaced that top talent championship defender yet.
Yeah, we do. If he wants to persist with a 5, we desperately need a centre back, and I'd say even if we go to a 4, still could probably do with a centre half as well. Obviously, the elephant in the room is Charlie Cresswell, and the other kind of elephant I feel like in the room at the minute is Jake Cooper as well. Been a few more links. The Rangers link seems to have resurfaced. Also, Leeds and West Brom their names have kind of came into the fold a little bit. There was the article earlier saying, we'd love him to sign a contract extension. But I looked back and, the previous South London Press article said we open contract talks with him in April.
I think before that, to be honest, wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
So just questions, how far down the line are we with them contract talks? And, what if we get to, I don't think he'll go before the end of this window, but let's say we get to September, October and he isn't going to go. If Rangers are still interested, they can actually approach him on a pre-contract in January and we lose him for nothing. Or if we want to try and get some money for him, then we might get $1 million with 6 months of his contract left if we're lucky.
So maybe if you're that opinion, do you kind of give him a deadline? Maybe if you're Millwall, say, look, sign a contract or not? Because let's think about Jed Wallace. He obviously went to West Brom, who Cooper's linked with. I know for a fact Wallace would be bigging up Cooper up there. If he had any say, he's their captain. I'm not saying he's involved with transfers, but I know Wallace always speaks very highly of Jake Cooper. I remember doing something for Not Top 20 podcast saying he's one of the best defenders he's ever played with. But I think if he's not signed that contract, do you say goodbye? Like, I mean, it feels like he's been never present in that back line. But then if you can get, say, $3 million for him, maybe that's pushing it. But I don't know, maybe £2 to £3 million for him. Risk it and try and bring in someone else from an obscure nation somewhere in Europe and roll the dice, maybe, mate. I feel like there is that sort of value there. I feel like.
Yeah, well, I think we need clarity over this. We can't keep going like we did with Jed. We don't want to make a habit of losing our best players on a free transfer. And Cooper's 20. Is he 28, 29 now? I don't know if he's still good mates with Jed. If he has, he might have seen Jed go up to West Brom and probably get a decent payday. Maybe he's eyeing that up. I don't know. Maybe he is thinking about maybe going to Rangers if they are interested and maybe having a go in Europe. I know obviously the league quality leaves a lot to be desired, but age of 29 after only playing its second and third tier football most of your career, and then all of a sudden you get the chance to play in Europe. That's, something that you might find quite hard to turn down.
Definitely. I think Scottish Premier League maybe is a direct comparison to us in a sense, Millwall, in my opinion, because it's a good league, competitive, but obviously you've always got the two teams running away at the top. But I feel like Cooper's very appreciated Millwall because Millwall's that sort of club that doesn't play the pretty on the eye football. But if you saw him at any other Championship side, maybe aside from the likes of Rotherham, and maybe, I don't know, maybe someone like one of the teams that got promoted from the Championship, like Sheffield Wednesday, I think he'd struggle. I don't know what you think, but I think he'd struggle in a side that likes to get a lot of the ball. We've seen him try to pass the ball out, and I think
that's
he's got his values here.
Yeah, that's his biggest flaw, really. I think if he could move the ball around a bit better, then we probably would have lost him a few years ago because, he ticks a lot of boxes. He's English, he's tall, pretty strong. For someone his size, he's actually not the slowest. I know obviously he's not the quickest, but could be a lot slower. Left-footed as well, which counts for quite a lot of, probably a bit more if he was right. And I think if he had that ability to move the ball, and I think probably would have gone a few years ago, to be honest. But we need clarity. We can't keep going on with the threat of losing our best players on free transfers every few years. And then, if he does go on a free transfer at the end of the season, we'll need to almost rebuild our entire defence because Hutch will be another year older, probably another few injuries. Murray will be another year older, and his performances haven't filled me with promise start of this season or end of last. And then that's where we are with the defence all of a sudden.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, mate. And then it's like, what do you do? But like I said, I would personally, if he's not signing a contract, it's difficult to say it because obviously how good he's been for us for so many years now. But I think personally, take the cash and run. That's my opinion. Let's move on to Sunday. I keep saying Saturday, but we're playing 12 o'clock on Sunday. We're on the party train, ain't we, mate? 8-ish out of Stratford and Liverpool.
Yeah, 8-10 Liverpool Street, 8-17 Stratford. Yeah, it'll be my first time going to Norwich. I'm looking forward to it. I know it isn't traditionally a happy hunting ground for us, but Middlesbrough wasn't really either. So, I might try and approach this section with a bit more optimism than I've approached some other bits recently. So, I'd be interested to see what team he puts out. There was a few rumours that Nisbet might have done something in training. That maybe sounds like a bit later on it was more precaution. He was removed from the open training session. So, be interested. But I don't think he can name the same team again after that kind of quite lethargic performance.
Yeah, you touched on the record. I've got some stats here. I'm not proclaiming these are mine, but if you go onto Google and you click on the fixture and you go to timeline, you get insights, pretty much stats. Millwall failed to win any of their last 19 away league games against Norwich. Drawn 7, lost 12. Their longest ever run away from home against a specific side in the Football League. Perfect for a Sunday morning train, that, mate.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't feel much confidence all of a sudden, does it?
Since losing 4-0 to Millwall in August 2017, Norwich unbeaten in their last 7 league encounters with Millwall, winning 5 and drawing 2.
Yeah, ruined my 21st birthday as well last season because of that game. So,
yeah, you touched on that game. Millwall are one of 2 sides Norwich's Josh Sargent hasn't scored more than 1 goal against in a single league game. So obviously he scored twice, didn't he? Against last season. And then a brace in August. Millwall have lost 5 of their last 8 Championship games. If you carry into last season, mate, only winning 3 of them.
That's an alarming run.
Which is also
no draws in there either, which is very unlike us.
I know. It's as many as in their previous 23 games, which was 9 wins, 9 draws, and 3 defeats. Or 5 defeats, sorry. And then finally, the last one on here, all 4 of Norwich's points so far this season have come from losing positions. Obviously, they were down against Southampton at one point, and they were also down against Hull at one point. So, make it out of you will.
Don't start winning, otherwise we get lured into a false sense of security again.
Yeah, flashbacks to that game where was it 3-2? We lost 4-3 in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, mate. It's never a good hunting ground, but I'm looking forward to Sunday. I actually quite like it to be on a Sunday for once. It ruins it in the sense that you can't go too over the top when you get back to London late in the evening, but it's a Sunday fun day, mate. We're travelling to Norwich. Just make sure we come out with our fingers intact and everything will be all right, mate. But it should be a good encounter. I think in a weird way, it is a bit like Middlesbrough. And Norwich are still transitioning with Webber. And it's an interesting side they've got nowadays. Some weird characters in that side.
Quite mixed, isn't it?
Yeah, you wouldn't associate Ashley Barnes signing for Norwich, would you?
No. It's a right mix. They've got some, decent youth players. They've got a little bit of South American talent. And then, as you said, with players like Ashley Barnes, you've got your championship stalwarts in there as well. Yeah. I think player to watch from is Jonathan Rowe. I think he scored in all of their first 3 games so far. And I'm slightly, I can't think, I'm slightly not that optimistic about the fact they put 4 past Southampton last weekend. That doesn't fill me with a huge amount of confidence, to be honest. But they did concede 4, so there is scope there for us to create maybe a few chances.
You're right. Like their last 11. So the game against Southampton, Angus Gunn in goal. Okay, not a bad keeper to be fair. Gianna Lewis, which is their left back. Jack Stacey, who's played for Rotherham, for Bournemouth at right back. And then you got Shane Duffy and Ben Gibson centre halves. I'm seeing pace. I'm seeing SA.
Yeah, there isn't much pace there.
I'm seeing us having a chance on the break here personally. And then you got Onel Hernandez, who's an unbelievable midfielder. I think he's a top player. Kenny McLean in midfield, decent, and Burey, like you mentioned. And then they got this Sarah, and then Barnes and Sargent up front. They can mix it up, I think, with this side. So they will cause us trouble. But I personally see that opportunity for us on the counter attack, to kind of make a difference. I want to shout out as well their bench. One player in particular, Kellen Fisher. Do you know that name at all, Dad?
Yeah, from Bromley, isn't he?
Yeah, they signed him to be part of their development squad, and he had such a good pre-season that he's making up the first team squad now. So I'd love to see him get some minutes. Saw him play a few times for Bromley last season. Unbelievable footballer. I think he won their player of the year. He only started the season after the first 5 games, then held down the right back position himself all season. So, yeah, I mean, that's also a player I'd like to see us go after, to be honest, especially his right back's a bit of a questionable position for some at the minute.
And it's a youth player right on our doorstep as well.
Correct. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, Tim Krul's gone to Luton and he's been replaced by George Long. I'd love to see Long start on Sunday. I really want to see him start. But yeah, I mean, look, we talked about, obviously, what is our best 11, mate? So I guess the old cliche question, what would be your 11 for Sunday, mate? I mean, put you on the spot a bit, but have you got a start 11 in mind that you'd like to see us go for? I guess a formation change. We'll go realistic. It'll be 5 at the back. But
yeah, I was about to say, maybe it might be one of them games where, maybe if they're playing 2 up top, and with a winger like Onel Hernandez and who played on the right, is it that Sarah or
is that Sarah? Yeah.
Maybe you might be better off maybe going for a 5 in this game. But if we are going for a 5, I would at least like to see us go with 2 up top rather than having 1 up top and 2 flanking. So Sarkic in goal. I would almost be tempted to chuck. I really struggle to justify starting Danny McNamara. You know what? Leonard at right wing back, Hutchinson. Wes Harding right centre back, Hutchinson middle centre back, Cooper left centre back, Brian left. I wouldn't touch Casper and Billy. I think they've been pretty decent so far. I'll stick with Fleming in the 10, but he does need to kind of prove a point, and I'd go probably for Nisbet and Bradshaw from the off. Watmore didn't have a great game, kind of drifts in and out a little bit. I'd probably leave the youth player, Essa and Amaku on the bench for a little bit, maybe an injection of pace a bit later in the game.
I like that team. No George Saville though. I know you've said Denor and Mitchell. I think Denor is top, but I feel a bit harsh on George Saville. I love George Saville, man.
I do feel a bit harsh on George Saville, but I feel like Casper's been brought in as someone who can rival him, and Casper's started off very well.
Yeah. But when I said about characters, I think George Saville is a character, like in every sense of that word.
But where do you fit? Is this a mental thing to say? Could he play centre half?
Or left wing back? Joe Bryan's.
Brian's doing all right, but could he play centre back? If you want to play free and have someone who can maybe bring the ball out of the fence a little bit, then I think possibly.
There's not an argument to say. I mean, I wouldn't drop Fleming because he's got that moment of magic in him, but I could see a world where he goes 5-3-2. Has Denor, Mitchell, and Saville, Leonard right centre half, Danny Mac right wing back, and Joe Bryan left wing back with with Cooper and Hutch. Because then I think you've got the legs to kind of get forwards from midfield deep and kind of on the counter attack, and then maybe go with Bradders and Nisbet. But then you leave them really isolated up top, and I acknowledge that.
That would be a problem. It would literally be just them two,
but
maybe Brian would make a bit of support. But
he did flirt with 5-3-2. I don't know if you remember the start of the season before last. In pre-season, we played Ipswich. I think we won 3-0. George Evans played one side, Saville played the other, and Mitchell was in the middle. I think I'm going to say Mitchell. I could be wrong. And then we've done that in the QPR game as well, and it looked good. I think if you can get the ball forward and get the team slowly up the pitch, it does work. And I think he does want to play that deep down. I really do.
It worked because we had. If you want to play that, you maybe have to start a Macu up top because we had someone with genuine pace. I remember, and as well, and then if it wasn't Wallace, or sometimes it would be Wallace and Bennett up top together.
Exactly.
I think he played that kind of 5-3-2 a little, mainly during the
lockdown stage.
Yeah, the 21-22 season that no one could go to. He played that quite a lot during that season with Wallace and Bennett up top together. Maybe it's how he wants to play, but I think if you want to play that, you need to play with genuine pace up top.
Maybe Fleming and Nisbet up front.
Let's say Fleming could play as a striker, but I feel like he'd want to drop deep and maybe try and get on the ball a little bit, and then that runs the risk of Nisbet being even more isolated than he was on Saturday.
Yeah. Oh, for the record, I mean, but I do think he does like that formation. I think he will come back this season at some point because I remember him talking about it before, and I think that's kind of how he wanted to set the team up. And then if you think about it, it does complement the likes of Leonard playing right centre half as well, getting forward up the pitch and making them runs forward. But who knows, mate? Who bloody knows? All I know is we're going Sunday, and I'm looking forward to it.
We'll have a good day regardless.
Exactly. Win or lose, right? What's your score prediction, mate, for Sunday's game when we head to Carrow Road?
I really hope after the last two games they got a point to prove. So, and this is probably, a positive from me. I'll say 2-2. I'll say 2-2. I don't know where we're going to get 2 goals from, but I'll say 2-2.
I think we'll have opportunities, but I also think Norwich going forward are a force. I think it's going to be like I'll probably back 2-2. I was thinking 2-2. I don't want to agree with you because I want to go for something different, but I'll go 3-3. There you go. It's on Sky, right?
Yeah, exactly. Bradshaw's time to shine, isn't it?
Exactly, mate. So if it's on Sky, we haven't seen Bradshaw start a game yet. I actually feel like he might play Sunday, but we'll have to wait and see. I could personally think I could see loads of goals in this game, and hopefully we get opportunities to take it when it comes to them. But we'll have to wait and see, mate. Any things you want to add, mate, before I wrap up today's show?
No, just looking forward to it. Unfortunately, this will be our last game for 2 weeks that isn't affected by train strikes. So that has ruined my Birmingham away day. And might threaten Stoke at home as well, which is frustrating. So I'll be sure to enjoy this one because I think my next away game after this is either going to be West Brom or Plymouth.
Oh, Plymouth, mate. A trip down there. I can't wait for that one.
Yeah.
On a Tuesday night.
Oh, mate, I'm doing a couple of days down there. I can't wait.
Well, thanks as always, mate, for coming on. It's much appreciated. And yeah, obviously, thanks for listening and tuning in, guys. If you're watching or obviously listening on your audios, it's much appreciated. Be sure to check us out on our socials at That Mill Pod. Come on, you lines. Let's put the wrongs right on Sunday when we go up to Norwich. Thanks for watching. See you soon.